Good to go? Gotta make sure. We're good? Okay. All right, after a brief delay, I'll call our March 19th, 2019 meeting of Middletown City Council to order. If you please stand and join me in moment meditation and the pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Ms. Gank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Bohannon.
Here.
Mr. Moon.
Here.
Mr. Mulligan.
Here.
Mayor Mulligan.
Here.
Ms. Vittori.
All right, Mr. Atkins is under the weather. Ms. Cohen, do you have any city manager reports this time?
Nothing to add this evening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. With that, we'll move on to our citizens' comments. Received a few cards this evening. I'd like to call Mr. Joe Whitman.
Yes.
Good evening. If we get your name and address for the record, please.
Joe Whitman, 1504 North Braille Boulevard, Middletown, Ohio.
Thank you. Welcome.
I come here as a representative of the Art Central Foundation for over a year now. The ACF has been involved in a project that's very, very important to us. Actually, you all know I'm a good speaker. I'm just really scared or afraid of podiums. But we've been involved in a project that's very important to us. And we've had a couple of meetings with city staff, and we've asked to have meetings with city council. Our latest telephone calls and emails have not been answered. So we would like to get on the agenda for the next council meeting and be able to propose, show where we stand on this issue.
Okay.
Can we get that done?
Well, we'll take it up with Mr. Atkins, and he did provide us an update here this past week, I think, but he's been out this week under the weather, so we'll follow up with him and certainly appreciate you.
Can he answer back
to us
and let us know?
Somebody from the staff will get back.
Okay.
Thanks for coming down this evening.
Thank you.
All right, next I have Miss Denise Brodsky.
Good evening.
Good evening. If we get your name and address for the record, please.
Denise Brodsky. I'll give you my home address. Okay.
Sure.
662 South Washington Boulevard, Hamilton. Your neighbors. Mayor Mulligan, city council members, and city staff and members of the public, thank you for letting me come up here this evening and share with you a brief update of where we are at the Sorg Opera House. I know we've got a couple of other Sorg board members here as well this evening, and also to stand in solidarity with our other nonprofit organizations here in Middletown who are providing a really valuable service to the cultural economy here in Middletown. And if I may, I'd like to share with you some literature to help you see what's coming up at the Sorg, and we're all excited about it because we've got a full agenda coming up in April and May. So we hope that you'll come and support us and join us. If you don't mind, can I pass these on?
Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to briefly say we've got heat. Yay! And this has been a long time coming, 6 years, and a lot of pounds have added on to this frame, and a lot of years of aging has come on this face over the 6 years. But I can tell you we are just so thrilled and excited to be this far in our project, which I think there's been so many people in this community who really doubted, thought that, wow, they're never going to pull this off. Why the heck did they ever come into this dilapidated old building that had 6 containers full of garbage that we pulled out back in 2012. So we're just very proud of where we are today. Robinson Heating and Air have done a yeoman's job in putting in our heating and air conditioning. We've got an upgraded electrical system. We've got some new painting and facade work that's happened recently, and we have a growing audience. When you look at what our audience numbers were from last year, it's really been very well split in the middle from Middletonians to half of outside of Middletown and in the region. So we think that this is a project that is really going to bring some economic dollars to the community, both in visitors and in bringing heads in beds and butts in seats so that we can also fuel what's happening here in Middletown, and we're just pleased and excited to be a part of it. So we hope that you'll join us again at one of our upcoming shows. And as Ken Bowman comes up to speak on one of the resolutions or ordinances that you'll be looking at later on this evening, number 12, I really urge you to look at how, and I know you've done this, I know you've researched other communities and how they support the economic and the revitalization of buildings and that bring fuel to the economy. There is a really wonderful story about how they tackled that in Dubuque, Iowa. And I only have one copy of this, but you can find it online, the full article. And it really shows how that community has come together to support all businesses, including nonprofits, and more of in a supportive way versus in a punitive way. So I just ask you to consider that as you're looking towards how do you deal with vacant buildings and occupancy rates, and how we're also working towards our historic tax credits and how that all plays into what we're doing, particularly at the Sorg and other properties around the city. So without that, do you mind if I pass that around too as well? Again, I only have one copy, and I'm sorry about that. So that's all I have this evening. Thank you for listening to me, and have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next card I have this evening is from Mr. Ken Bowman. Good evening. If we get your name and address for the record, please.
It's Ken Bowman. It's 60 Altamont Court in Fort Thomas, Kentucky.
Welcome.
Anyhow, but I'm here on behalf of the SORG to seeking some clarification, and I haven't read the language, and I know it's really not, there'll be a summary read tonight at the end of the agenda here, but we do have concerns about the definition of vacant property. You know, we're kind of doing our project in stages, focusing on the theater first. So the front commercial building, we're concerned, is that going to appear as vacant? Are we going to start getting fined? Could this have unintended consequences? You know, this ordinance, which we appreciate the spirit of what we know of it so far, but just seeking some clarification, and didn't know if all the specific language beyond the summary is available anywhere.
It is. It's on our website.
Is it at this stage, even
It
before
is,
it's
yes.
passed?
Oh, yes. All of the proposed legislation and the staff report that went with it are
Okay.
all available on our website.
Okay.
So when you go to that, you'll just click on the workbook, and everything that council received on that is available to the public.
Okay. All right. Should we be worried?
Well, I believe our intent is not to, go after properties that are being worked on and repaired. We're going to have the first reading tonight and staff report, and I think we'll be able to kind of adjust that. We've got a couple of weeks. That's the reason we're doing a first and second reading, and certainly get input and things like that. But certainly appreciate you raising your concerns.
Possible amendments that could happen.
Yeah, if there's concerns that come up, yeah.
Did you provide an email on your card? I'd be happy to get with you about contacting you between now and the next reading. If you have concerns, I'm happy to get with you.
You want to write it on here? You have a card?
Yeah.
Okay.
Got a sword.
I'd be happy to contact you.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Bowman.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, and the last card I have this evening is from Mr. Jeff Payne. Good evening. If we get your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, I'm Jeff Payne. I'm the Executive Director of Downtown Middletown, Inc., 1050 Central Avenue, Middletown, Ohio.
Welcome.
Welcome. Good evening, Your Honor, members of City Council. I'm just here to speak in favor of ordinance number 02019-18. This particular piece of legislation was developed through the Downtown Middletown Inc.'s Economic Restructuring Committee. We propose this as part of our mission, which is to build community, foster pride, and revitalize downtown. The Economic Restructuring Committee worked on this over the course of 2017 and 2019, and it's primarily been focused on just the urban core. Part of our strategy was we want to make sure that downtown Middletown is vibrant and we want to drive growth and increase the downtown's sustainability. We did not, in this process, develop this to target any specific buildings or structures. Rather, our focus was on safety. We wanted to encourage the reuse of these vacant structures, hopefully in some creative fashion. And we also wanted to continue to protect the hundreds of thousands of dollars of investment that is currently underway. So, thank you.
Thanks for coming down this evening. All right, and with that, that's all the comment cards I've received, so we can move on to our consent agenda. Ms. Skank?
For your consideration this evening, we have the approval of the city council minutes from February the 19th and March the 5th, 2019. To receive and file oaths of office for Matthew Thornchill, Matthew Galt, Thomas Gilvin, Jacob Lentz, Brian Morano, and Jacob Moore. To receive and file board and commission minutes from the Civil Service Commission of November 1st, 2018. The Park Board from February 11th, 2019. And the Middletown Visitors Bureau from February 11th, 2019. To approve a contract with Schulte Business Services, LLC of Dayton, Ohio for mowing and grounds maintenance at the Middletown Regional Airport. To approve the purchase of network switches and related hardware software for the Department of Information Systems in the total amount of $79,090.51 from Cincinnati Bell Incorporated of Miamisburg, Ohio. To approve the purchase of a power load cot and associated equipment for a fire medic from Stryker of Chicago, Illinois in the amount of $43,931.56. To approve the purchase of a trailer mounted asphalt hot box reclaimer for the Division of Street Maintenance in the total amount of $32,971.75 from KM International, doing business as Southeastern Equipment Company, Incorporated, and to accept the resignation of Scott Trick from the Park Board.
Okay, do we have a motion for the approval of the issues and actions as listed on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Okay, Ms. Skank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Moon.
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan.
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan.
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon.
Yes.
Ms. Vettori.
Yes.
All right, that brings us to our council comments this evening. We'll start with Mr. Mulligan.
Thank you, Your Honor. A couple comments tonight. First, I express thanks and appreciation to New Era Baptist Church. They hosted the installation of the new officers for the Middletown chapter of the NAACP on Saturday, so I extend congratulations to that organization's new president, William Ford. And then second, on Friday night, the Community Building Institute hosted its Lens of Hope experience at the Middletown Robert Sunny Hill Community Center. And it was an opportunity for community members to learn more about what CBI is doing in our schools at the community center, and also some job training assistance. So they're doing some excellent programming, and I congratulate them on their continued good work. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bohannon?
Nothing this evening, sir.
Ms. Vettori?
Nothing, thank you.
All right. Vice Mayor Moon?
Just one item. I want to echo Mr. Mulligan's comments. I, too, was happy to attend the NAACP officer installation this past week and want to congratulate Mr. Ford and all of his new team and wish them well in 2019. And that's all I have.
All right, thank you. I'll echo those comments as well, too. It's certainly good to have an active NAACP chapter here in Ohio and or Middletown, and I think he wants to really step things up. I was impressed with Mr. Ford and so his vision for what the council, what the charter can do. Also wanted to mention and thank the collaborators for the St. Patrick's Day festivities this past weekend. Certainly good to see the activity downtown. Partook in a little bit of that, but certainly good to see things run around from 5K runs to some parties, creative cocktails, and lots of green, so all day long. So that was very good to see that activity. And then lastly, I want to congratulate Connections Day Spa, a new spa that opened up, had a grand opening today, ribbon cutting today, downtown Middletown, and that increases the growth and activity in downtown, and certainly interested in seeing the commitment and appreciative of the commitment and investment that's going on. So it's great to see those good things. So with that, we can move to our legislation. And we've got one change. We'll be removing item 7 to table that from the agenda for our consideration this evening. With that, Ms. Cohen, we can do the legislation.
Thank you, Your Honor. There are 4 matters this evening we're asking you to consider as an emergency, so I'd ask for a motion to waive the charter requirements regarding Resolution R 2019-11, Ordinance O 2019-10, Resolution R 2019-12, Ordinance O 2019-14, requiring one reading and immediate enactment.
I move to waive the charter provision requiring readings on 2 separate days and to declare the previously read ordinances and resolutions an emergency measure and read one time only.
Second?
Okay, Ms. Kank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Mulligan,
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan,
Yes.
Ms. Vettori,
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon,
Yes?
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
First matter will be Resolution R 2019-11, a resolution declaring the necessity of repairing certain sidewalks, curbs, gutters, and driveway aprons in the city of Middletown, requiring that abutting property owners repair the same and declaring an emergency.
Okay, do we have a motion to adopt?
So moved?
Second?
Ms. Cohen?
I believe we did hear about this once previously. This is the annual update as we do street repairs.
Okay, any other questions or comments from council? Okay, Ms. Kank, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Mulligan,
Yes.
Ms. Vettori,
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon,
Yes?
Mr. Moon,
Abstain?
Mr. Mulligan,
Yes.
The next matter is ordinance O 2019-10, an ordinance authorizing the submission of an application for federal assistance, an action plan, and a projected use of funds under Title I of the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974, as amended for program year 2019, and declaring an emergency.
Okay, do we have a motion to adopt?
So moved?
Second?
All right, now we had some previous information on this as well. Anything else to add?
No, Your Honor, I believe we had a public hearing on this and then for once previously, so we're just ready to move on it tonight.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from council? Okay, Ms. Kank, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Vettori,
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon,
Yes.
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan,
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan,
Yes.
Number 3 this evening is ordinance O 2019-11, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing a contract with Bo Townsend Ford for the purchase of a 2016 Chevrolet Tahoe LS. This is the second reading.
Okay, do we have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second?
Any other questions or comments from council? Okay, Ms. Kank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Bohannon,
Yes?
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan,
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan,
Yes.
Ms. Vettori,
Yes.
Number 4 is ordinance O 2019-12, an ordinance vacating an alley near the intersection of Clark Street and Reinhardt's Boulevard and a portion of Reinhardt's Boulevard. This is also a second reading.
Okay, do we have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second?
Okay, any other questions or comments? Ms. Kank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan,
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan,
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon,
Yes?
Ms. Vettori,
Yes.
The next matter is number 5, ordinance O 2019-13, an ordinance vacating portions of Lamneck Street, Calumet Avenue, and Grand Avenue. This is also a second reading.
Okay, do we have a motion to adopt?
So moved?
Second?
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, Ms. Kank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Mulligan,
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan,
Yes.
Ms. Vettori,
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon,
Yes?
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Number 6 is resolution R 2019-12, a resolution to make adjustments to appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the city of Middletown, counties of Butler and Warren, state of Ohio, for the period ending December 31st, 2019, and declaring an emergency. This involves the Community Development Act escrow fund and the Community Development Act 1974 fund.
Okay, do we have a motion to adopt?
So moved?
Second?
Okay, Ms. Cohen?
Your Honor, for a very long time, the city had a HUD-funded revolving loan fund that was provided for the purpose of residential rehabilitations for low to moderate income homeowners in the city. The RLF was discontinued around 2010. It was just not a very effective program for us. In that, we've gotten some payments back. This money has been sitting in the escrow fund for repaying that loan. We cannot spend it out of the current fund. This moves it to a fund where we can actually spend some of the money. It's probably worth noting HUD has changed some rules regarding the grant timeliness. Spending this money is actually encouraged at this point. It is part of what we intended to use on the items you're going to see for the demolition of Montgomery Ward.
Any other questions or comments from council? Okay, Ms. Kank, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Mulligan,
Yes.
Ms. Vettori,
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon,
Yes?
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan,
Yes.
Number 7, we are going to table. We'll move on to 8, ordinance O 2019-14, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing a contract with Vickers Demolition for the demolition of 24 North Main, also known as the Montgomery Ward Building, and declaring an emergency.
Okay, do we have a motion to adopt?
So moved?
Second?
Ms. Cohen?
During the high windstorms in the end of February, the facade of the Montgomery Ward Building actually ended up falling onto Main Street, which created an imminent risk of harm and a public safety concern. So we were moving forward with the demolition of that building as an emergency matter. Vickers has started the demolition. In order to get to Vickers, this was originally a property that was bid for demolition in December of 2017. At the time, we didn't have the funds to move forward with it, but they were the lowest and best bid at that time. When we got this emergency situation, staff called Vickers, explained, and asked if they would be willing to honor that bid. They indicated they would be willing to honor that bid. This is a pass-through. We will use some of the HUD funds from the last matter to pay for this matter.
That's why the staff report says it will be reimbursed, because we're fronting the money to be.
Yes, technically it's a HUD reimbursement, even though we have the money. We couldn't use we have to use it for a HUD-approved program. So we're using what we have been sitting on as reimbursement to pay for this program expense.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from council? Ms. Kank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Number 9 is ordinance O 2019-15, an ordinance authorizing a contract with RB Juergens Contractors Incorporated for the 2019 Local Street Improvement Program. This is a first reading.
Okay. Go on.
Your Honor, this is the 2019 Local Street Improvement Program. 4 contractors submitted bids for the project. Juergens was the lowest and best bid. It'll be funded from multiple sources. We're looking at OPWC grant money, the Stormwater Capital Fund, some CDBG dollars, as well as assessments. This makes the appropriations for the assessments and allows us to move forward with the project.
Okay. Any questions from council? Yeah, thank you.
The next matter is ordinance O 2019-16, an ordinance authorizing an amendment to the Community Reinvestment Area Agreement between the City of Middletown and Mike Allen Real Estate Holdings, LLC, and Allen Group Enterprise, LLC, doing business as BMW Motorcycles of Greater Cincinnati. This is also a first reading. As you're aware, they are working on the old senior center to update it to a BMW dealership for motorcycles. During that process, they have run into some structural concerns with the buildings that is throwing the timeline off. So they're asking for an extension so they'd be able to address that. They've done a lot of rehab on the interior of the building and just hit this snag and are asking us to extend their deadlines to accommodate that.
Okay. Any questions or comments from council?
Just a comment that I've followed their progress on Facebook, and it's obvious that they are doing a lot of work inside the building.
Good to see it happening, yeah. So.
There's been a lot of interior work, and they just hit this snag when they were trying to do some work on the inside.
Okay, thank you.
And similarly, number 11 is ordinance O 2019-17, an ordinance authorizing an amendment to the Small Business Economic Development Grant Agreement between the City of Middletown and Mike Allen Real Estate Holdings, LLC, and Allen Group Enterprises, LLC, doing business as BMW Motorcycles of Greater Cincinnati. This is a first reading. Similar situation, separate agreement.
Okay. Any questions on that?
Okay.
And our last item?
And the last item, ordinance O 2019-18, an ordinance to enact chapter 1458, registration of vacant property within the Urban Core Central Zoning District. And this is a first reading. We've had some comments on this already. The idea was to try and help some of the urban core buildings to maintain their weatherproofing, prevent access from vagrants that shouldn't be in the building, allow access for fire, and make sure that those buildings are being maintained so that there's not further development of blight in an area that we're trying to continue and encourage development. I would note there was some discussion and request. This does have a 10-year sunset period on it, so further councils can choose to extend it or discontinue it and allow it to fall off.
Okay.
I had just one comment as I was reading through the exemptions. I thought in the draft submitted by DMI that, similar to Section C, if it's listed for sale with a realtor, it could be exempted. I thought there was an exemption for properties that could be for rent, so I don't know if that's something we want to consider as well. It's more of a comment than a question. So.
I was not aware that the drafts I reviewed, but it's certainly something we can add in if you would like.
Explain to us the registration fee process here. I'm reading $200 and $400. What are we looking at there?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the beginning.
The registration fee, item 1458.05. Explain to me how this is. Every vacant property owner going to have to pay $200 a year or $400 a year or whatever?
Yeah, so the idea is that that we're trying to encourage buildings from being vacant. So everyone that owns a property that is deemed vacant under the definitions would pay that fee depending on whether it's a residential or commercial building. As long as it's not subject to one of the exemptions. So these would hopefully catch your true vacant buildings where nobody's doing anything with them. If you're actively trying to rent it, actively trying to sell it, actively working on rehab, you would fall under one of the exemptions. This is the true vacant building. And those costs can be used to help secure the building, help to make sure it's being kept up to code, and to help administer the program.
And this whole legislation is for strictly the downtown area?
Yes.
Okay. How far does that branch out? Where are we looking at? Boundaries?
I do not have the exact answer to that. You were talking mostly downtown central.
Yeah, I think the urban core goes to about the railroad,
Like a block
north
on
and
either
south
side.
to,
Okay.
a block or so.
Gotcha.
From up and down Central Avenue. So, any other questions or comments?
I mean, my only comment would be is that I know this legislation was drafted in the spirit of much that's recommended from Heritage Ohio and other national preservation groups, and it's used widely across the country, and not to be punitive to those trying to make any positive efforts, but to honestly keep those who've done nothing. I mean, we have landlords that are in Florida that we've never heard of on some of these buildings, that have never responded to multiple requests. So those are the people that we're really trying to hold accountable to just keep their properties up to code and be safe and continue the revitalization. So it's really not intended to hurt anybody who's doing anything to improve downtown.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay. That's all we have under legislation for this evening.
Yeah, sure.
So our last item for meetings and executive session, so I need a motion of the Authority of Ohio Revised Code 121.22 G1 to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official.
Second?
Okay, Ms. Gag, would you call the roll?
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes?
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Following our executive session will be, do we need to make an appointment or not? It depends. We may make an appointment. We might come back.
Actually, we won't. We'll just put it on the next agenda.
Okay, we'll do it that way then. Okay. So we will not make an appointment to the vacancy we have, but we'll consider that in executive session and put that on the agenda for next meeting on April 2nd in these chambers. Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Thank you.